Growth doesn't just happen. Even when you have product market fit, it's a myth that suddenly you'll have product market fit and then growth will take care of itself. The way you get product market fit is by that continuous focus on growth and growing really, really fast. And then in order to grow really fast, what you need is you can grow really fast in one of two ways.
Our guest today is Amir Nathoo, the CEO and co-founder of Outschool.com. Outschool is an innovative platform offering a marketplace for live online classes for K-12 learners. Amir is not only an accomplished entrepreneur, but also an officer cadet for the Royal Air Force VR in the Cambridge University Air Squadron. His journey in tech and entrepreneurship is noteworthy, having led development of Square Payroll and founding Trigger.io. An alumnus of the University of Cambridge, Amir holds a Master in Engineering in Electrical and Information Sciences. He has this distinguished experience of going through the Y Combinator accelerator with both Trigger.io and Outschool. His insights today are bound to be invaluable. Outschool is a unicorn, and how he got there, this is what we are talking about right now. Welcome to another episode of our special podcast series featuring speakers from Studio Alpha Accelerator Spring Batch 2024. This is Roll Right In. I'm Fabian. I suggest we just get started, right?
Yeah,
because it's just limited. Okay.
I am ready. Absolutely fine.
Today, Outschool is active in 195 countries. You offer 140,000 live online classes to more than 1 million learners. Offered so far 24 million class hours, generated like more than 350 million teacher earnings. Amir, how did you first recognize Outschool's product market fit?
Well, that's a really great question, because as with many startup journeys, it took a while. It wasn't the case that when we first started the company or when we first launched the product that we could immediately recognize product market fit. It required a lot of iteration, and in particular, learning from our early adopter audience to get product market fit. But the real telltale signs were twofold. One was metrics oriented. What we saw was our customer retention after 2017, in the fall of 2017, suddenly jumped up, and our retention curve started flattening out. And what that means is that when new customers come in, after a few months, not 100% of the original group remain. Some customers come in and try the product, and for whatever reason, it's not a fit. But then after a few months, those that remain then stay, and they stay a very, very long time. And they give 5-star reviews. They report very great satisfaction on surveys. And that is the moment that all consumer entrepreneurs are looking for, that moment when that happens. Because when that happens, then when you bring in new customers, enough of them are going to stay and the business is going to grow. And so at the same time, we saw the business rapidly increasing growth rates, and we grew 5x in 2018. And the other thing that we noticed, and we knew that we'd found product market fit, was the buzz within our community, especially amongst our teachers. And some of it wasn't always positive. The teachers were coming to us saying, "Oh, we need this, we need that. Your platform's broken in this way." And sometimes people see that as a sign that things aren't going well. But the reason they were coming for that is they were becoming very highly engaged, because they were making their earnings through this platform. They're starting to realize how important it was to their livelihood. And so those were the moments that we really noticed that we had product market fit. And all the scale you talked about came from that.
And what was the way to this point? What did you do different when before that you didn't came to this traction? And then why? What was the point that this traction increased?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's two parts to it, because for a marketplace like ours, a critical part is to get to a critical mass of scale. So when you have a marketplace and you have demand, you have buyers, and you have supply, even if you make the most beautiful, perfect product in the world that has everything anyone could want, you're not going to have product market fit unless you get to a particular scale. So what that meant for our process of iteration, which took several years, was we weren't only iterating on our software and the software that powers the marketplace itself. But we are also seeking to scale up the supply side and the demand side in concert with each other so that they were balanced. And that's very, very hard to do together. Typically when launching a company, or maybe when a B2B SaaS company, you would say, don't launch or don't try and grow or scale your audience until you really have good product market fit, that what you have hits the mark. But you can't really do that with a marketplace, because part of getting to product market fit is getting to the scale. So what we did was, in addition to that iteration on the software, keeping building out features that we see the demand side needs or the supply side needs, we would alternate between focusing on growing our supply or growing our demand, and alternate quite quickly in order to keep them growing in parallel. And so that combination of growing the supply and demand together, combined with building out the software and listening to our users and telling us what they want and noticing what they need, allowed us to get to product market fit.
Okay, so founded in 2015, and from 2019 to 20, bookings increased by 2,000%. And you increased sales from 6.5 to 54 million US dollars, ending then with a 100 million run rate annually. So when all these founders, and we know this also from our past and the previous companies, the highest pressure, at least I felt it like this, is that you can make sure that you grow quickly. Okay. So, and when you get started and you probably know that there is a product market fit, what did you do that you grow tremendously fast? How did you do that?
In order to grow, firstly, you have to have high standards for growth. You can't be of the mindset that, we're just going to try and keep this stable. If you want to be a startup that reaches world-changing size and become one of the great companies, then you have to go into it with mentality. We're going to try and grow this thing really, really fast. And
so you need the vision. You're talking about the vision.
Yes.
If you don't have the vision, you will never get there. That's what you're saying.
Right? I think it's both the vision of what it is you're trying to build, why it's important, but also just the ambition. I think sometimes startups hold themselves back and they don't know what fast growth is. And at the earliest stages, when you're, say, less than $1 million in revenue, or even in the low millions, it's like 2 to 3x a year is kind of like a baseline standard. And sometimes you can grow much faster than that. And you always have to be thinking about growth. And the way you grow is by serving customer needs better and finding those customers. Growth doesn't just happen. Even when you have product market fit, it's a myth that suddenly you'll have product market fit and then growth will take care of itself. The way you get product market fit is by that continuous focus on growth and growing really, really fast. And then in order to grow really fast, what you need is you can grow really fast in one of two ways. Either you have a compounding growth loop. And this is what we had in 2018 when we grew 5x. And what a growth loop looks like is you find some lever that when you put more resources or you put more pressure on it, then that attracts new customers and that allows you to reinvest. Now, a very straightforward one is a paid marketing growth loop. That's quite easy to model, because if your product is generating revenue and generating cash, and then you are able to invest that in marketing efficiently to attract more customers, then you can generate more cash on a fast payback period.
You did that. So you basically you got that money in by revenues, and you invested it in Google Ads.
Because we had a very solid business model, and we had compelling user-generated content that made very compelling ads on Facebook and Google. And then we put our pedal to the metal because we saw that it was paying back very rapidly. And we said, well, okay, all growth loops, you scale and it comes to some limit point, then you have to find another. But when you find something that works, you put your pedal to the metal and you grow as fast as possible. Another type of growth loop, which is relatively easy to see and mathematically model, is referrals or virality. If it is the case that when you attract one customer, they end up referring more than one customer to you, then you have a referral growth loop that can grow exponentially. And then there are many others. Reboot.io has the best curriculum on growth, and they'll describe some of what I talked about with product market fits and the different types of growth loops in more detail. And usually you find one, and then you have to add more and more in order to keep your growth growing as you scale. I would call these kind of growth loops your engine of your business. But I like to use like a boat analogy. You can have a boat with an engine. You can also have a boat with a sail. And here's the analogy. You also want to position your company and position your product so that it can take advantage of market's tailwinds. So when you can see something coming, like there's going to be like big demand for online classes because parents are going to be dissatisfied with their kids' education going in the future, more dissatisfied. That's kind of positioning that Outschool has in the market, which was a thesis upon which it's founded. And then in 2020, when we saw the global pandemic coming, we saw, oh my God, obviously, like a lot of families are going to need online learning. And then, but how can we position ourselves best? Because there were other online learning providers. And what we did is we offered a free version of the website for families in need. And as a result, and set up a non-profit around it. And as a result of that, many schools recommended us to their families because there was a free version. And obviously, and we invested in non-profit. We got donors to non-profit. But at the same time, families who had the means were paying for our core products offered by the private company. So we successfully positioned ourselves for what we saw as a massive market tailwind. So those are the two types of growth. And often founders focus on one or the other, but really the best is to have both. Because there won't always be tailwinds, or they're somewhat unpredictable. So you need to have an engine. But at the same time, if you can accelerate growth through innovative positioning, then that gives you an advantage as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. So first of all, you have proven like the product market fit, then you have proven that you can grow fast. And then on top of all that, COVID happened. I mean, this was just also touched on, right?
Yes, absolutely. Obviously we didn't build the company with the expecting there to be a global pandemic, 5 years after we found it. But what we did expect was that there were going to be shocks to the education system. And obviously we didn't expect this particular shock, but the idea that the education system was going to be challenged because of events that in the world and in society was definitely always part of the thesis. But
that's interesting. Basically, sorry for interrupting you. I just read on your LinkedIn profile, you're talking about all these things that are broken in society, okay? And then because that's just a fact, right? And this business model is built on these school systems that we know all over the world. I mean, it's very hard to build a very strong building system, education system. So, okay, there's a lot of broken things around. And when then something happens like COVID, then these things that are already are broken anyway already in the society, that then, even accelerates the potential market.
Absolutely. And there can be this denial sometimes of things that are broken, but I believe it's our duty to kind of build actual solutions. If you can predict that there's going to be a problem or a disaster coming, then what better thing to do than to try and be part of the solution and try and build what's needed in the future. But so you need the vision of what the future could look like, or what the benefit is, whether it's from new technology or a new way of doing operations or a new way of doing business, and then build with the future in mind. But to do that is hard. You have to kind of, we all live in the world as it is today, and we all have our mental models and assumptions about how the world works. And you have to find
the problem.
It is really tough to step out of that. Things do not have to be this way. They really don't, but they often are, because of history, because of the way our institutions and our legacy companies have come about, and you have to spot the opportunities where things are breaking, but people haven't really noticed yet, because everyone's kind
just used to it. They don't even realize that things are broken.
100%. And with the world changing more rapidly, I think we're seeing this across many facets of our world. Things are changing so fast that we're all kind of going through the motions of what we're used to, and it's way out of date, completely inappropriate or ineffective. in the situation. And that is true of many facets of life. And, that's why I write on my LinkedIn, society is broken in so many ways, and we need to find technological and social levers which to fix it. And that's, my personal mission in life. And, Outschool is part of that, specifically focused on the education system.
Then you were growing like 5 times. Then COVID happens, and you basically 20-fold your company within a year. How do you scale this fast? I imagine that there's a lot of stress when you have this demand, and you really want to, of course, as an entrepreneur, you want to capture all of that. But there's a lot of work piling up in the backlog. How did you handle this?
Well, it was incredibly intense. Like that level of speed of scale, when we're already doing multi-millions of bookings, as far as I'm aware, is unprecedented. You get or almost unprecedented, and it was tough. But there were a couple of things that we did very well. One thing was we succeeded in scaling the supply side as fast as the demand side. And we were benefited on that front by the fact that, as well as there being an absolute explosion of demand, there was also an explosion of teachers who wanted to practice their craft safely and wanted flexible learning opportunities. And so we focused on that early enough so we could keep the supply growing alongside the demand. And the other thing we did was we were completely overwhelmed in customer support. And also, in order to grow the supply, we have quality procedures internally. There was no way with our team at the start of 2020 we could keep up with that. But we realized we had this asset. So you kind of look around you, you see, what are your strategic assets? How can you use your strategic assets to solve these problems? And we had this strategic asset that we had this vibrant community of teachers, smart, skilled, motivated professionals who realized, we can hire from within our community to quickly scale up our customer support and our quality operations inside the company. And we did that. I remember my co-founder on the Sunday after school shut down told the customer support team, stop doing tickets. They just stop doing tickets. We're completely overwhelmed. Like whatever you can do individually is a drop in the ocean. Instead, I want you to go hire 5 new support reps. Each one of you go hire 5. Like talk about virality. Each one of you go hire 5 new customer support reps and come back. And someone asked him by when, and he said tomorrow.
I guess like not that much sleep in these times.
And it worked. And the things that we did were set incredibly aggressive deadlines which increases innovation. Use our strategic assets. So in this case, like our vibrant community. And sometimes those emergency situations are very helpful in bringing out the best in people. I wish we could operate that fast now. It's a little bit tougher in outside of those emergency situations. But having that really high standards for the speed with which we did things was incredibly important to surviving that year.
And then it's also not a surprise that then 2020 Outschool turned profitable and got a Series B for 45 million. Okay. You have successfully navigated multiple fundraising rounds, and now what's your approach to fundraising, or what can you recommend to all these founders out there that have to tackle fundraising, especially nowadays where fundraising has become more harsh?
Absolutely. And I'll just share our experience, which is that in the early days of the company, fundraising was hard. EdTech was not a cool domain to invest in. There hadn't been very many successes. And so, we had to take a certain approach. And also, we didn't have the traction and scale that we do now. And then during COVID, both our metrics and scale were very, very strong. And the market was very, very good. And so it was very important for us to capitalize on that opportunity and raise a large amount of funding so that we were set for funding. And now we did that successfully, and we have the majority of our funding still in the bank. And now, in the tough times in the financial market, we're able to say, we're not raising. We don't need to raise for many years. Obviously, if the market changes, there's opportunities, and we see opportunities to invest even more, then we'll take them.
So, okay, so now when you talk about this liquidity that you have around in your company, how did you get there?
So the most important thing is to be responsive to the market environment. When times are good, it's capitalize your company. When times are tough, then stay lean and try to avoid raising money on bad terms.
It's just losing time.
Exactly. And when you're at the early stage, when you maybe don't have the metrics so that later stage investors are going to invest in, be focused and targeted. Target people who are your natural allies, who will get it, whether the people who understand your domain or who are stage specific. Don't spray and pray. Don't take every meeting. It's important to build relationships and do almost treat it like customer discovery. Like when you're talking to customers about your products, you have a product to sell to investors, so treat it like customer development. But don't talk to too many investors too early. Some founders think that if you're getting a lot of meetings, you're making progress, or doing lots of coffee chats in between fundraising rounds. It's investors' job to get intelligence to the market. It's literally their job to meet you. So I loved the way Paul Graham gave advice to me and other founders in Y Combinator. He said, when you come out of an investor meeting, look down at your hand. Do you have a check in it? If yes, it was a good meeting. If no, waste of time. And he was making it to extreme. He's putting it to extremes.
But
sometimes not literally that, but people get confused and think that just because people are willing to spend time with you and these investors are spending time with you, that they're ultimately going to invest. No, you have to treat it. You have to treat it as a game where you're going to have to push. You're going to have to create a competitive environment.
Score.
You should create scarcity. You need to create scarcity for your stock. You need to create scarcity with your time. And there's an art to it that you can practice. It's similar to other kinds of sales process. It has similarities to dating. You need to be a little bit hard to get. Don't be spending all your time courting investors, because then you're not increasing your how attractive you are, which is based on your metrics and based on a perception that you're a growing company and that you're a hot company.
So therefore, you also took advantage of the year 21 in terms of fundraising.
Absolutely. And
how did it go?
We saw the opportunity in the market, both with the excellent fundraising environment and with our metrics coming out of 2020. And we were receiving inbound offers, and some companies were putting off fundraising, think maybe they could wait. We didn't need to fundraise. We just raised our Series B in 2020, but we decided to say, hey, we're going to raise now so that we don't have to raise again. And in retrospect, we didn't know obviously there was going to be a financial market meltdown in 2022, but in retrospect, it was exactly the right move, and we're now in a much better position having taken that step.
And you then ended up with a D round with 250, C round with 250 million.
We've raised 250 million in total.
Okay, congrats.
Thank you. But it's not about the amount you raise. It's about what you can then build with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a saying. So when you get married, there's still the chance to get divorced, right? But when you go into a relationship with an investor, that's very hard to get divorced. So how do you then, how did you approach to when you have like several offers from these investors? What exactly are you looking for that you choose the right investor?
That's a really great question. And you're right. It's incredibly important because, once an investor is invested, they're on your cap table. They have the rights that you negotiated with respect to the company. And that relationship could last decades, or until there's some kind of exit event in a high pressure situation. So you absolutely want to work with the right people, but you also want to work on the right terms. So, you want to do diligence on the person or the fund that you're working with. You want to ask them questions about their previous investments. You want to do reference calls. You want to ask them where their money's coming from. You want to ask them about their funds so you understand their pressures. So everything that you might do for hiring like an executive or a senior candidate company and then some. But the nature of fundraising rounds is that you're also compressed on time. And obviously you can't know everything about someone or everything about how things are going to happen. So the other part of this is the terms, the control terms in particular are incredibly important. But you won't always get it right. Things won't always go well in the relationships with your investors. So do your diligence, but then also have the humility to realize, I don't know how this is necessarily going to pan out. And as a result, never compromise on the control terms. And control terms being things like board seats and making sure you as founders have board control. They're things like protective provisions that give investors blocking rights over your company. You should have protective provisions too. You should work with a legal team who is really going to watch your back and take care of you and advise you really well. And when you are hiring a legal team, I would ask them about what are the best terms that they've ever got a founder and why, and also make sure that they're willing to think outside the box a little bit, because many legal firms just kind of are cookie cutter. They'll just do whatever is standard in the venture capital world. And of course, you don't necessarily want what's standard. You want what's best for you and your company.
Okay, so last but not least, how do you manage your to-dos, your tasks?
Badly.
Come on.
So,
I know that you're a very effective manager as well. So how do you do that?
Well, I have three different ways to do it. One is by setting goals on a weekly basis and on a quarterly basis. So I have my priorities and rank them. So they turn them into priorities. 1, 2, 3. Don't have too many in order to focus. Then in terms of tactical to-dos, I actually use Google Calendar reminders so I can put a time basis on them. But also, it's good to be organized using whatever your own techniques are, and I've given you a couple that I use, but never be beholden to them. I see people getting beholden to their to-do lists or beholden to their structure of how they like to prioritize. But if you are too beholden,
over-engineering. Don't
over-engineer it, and leave yourself space for reflection, because that's where innovation comes from. That's where you start to spot. You leave yourself open to notice things and notice new opportunities, and never get too wedded to whatever organizational system that you have.
And you are married and you have 2 little kids. How do you manage the time?
It's very challenging. Honestly, get a lot of help. So I have an assistant at work. I've built a great team around me, executive team, and we have to have a lot of help at home. And especially coming from not a great financial background and then the early stage of startups, it was a little bit hard to invest in this area. But oh man, I'm so much more productive and happy just by investing and getting the help we need around the house and with the kids and building the team around me.
How many hours do you work per week, in the average?
I actually don't know, because I do my core, call it like 40 to 45, when I'm maybe mostly back-to-back scheduled on calls. But then I'm kind of always working. Not in a bad way. It's quite integrated in my life. That's
it's thinking. Thinking is working too.
Thinking, or just like doing late night emails or late night Slacks, or having to do some focused work late because in the day it's broken up with meetings. So I actually don't know. But I feel good about working very hard because it's very integrated in my life, and so I feel a sense of balance even when working hard. I think some people think it's a dichotomy. Either I have work-life balance or I work really hard, and I don't think that's true. You can develop techniques and systems and mentalities that allow you to enjoy your kids at the weekend, but then also do work late on a Saturday night. Both can exist together.
So what is your one sentence recommendation to the young founders.
One sentence recommendation to young founders. It's tricky to put in one sentence. Be careful what you wish for, and be careful who you take advice from.
Thank you very much, Amir. Your experiences offer a great learning for all of us. I like it a lot.
Thanks
Thank you very
much.
much.
Pleasure talking to you.
I had a good question. Hang on, I had a good question. Where is it? Yeah, that was such a nice question. Why did I forget? Okay.
All good.
Where? Oh yeah, I got it.